Hey everyone, Killcam here, and it's time to talk some H1Z1 Just Survive. Hidden loot rooms. Usually when people employ them in their bases, they have them in roof shelters. This isn't as effective as it used to be, as most raiders are wise to this now, and it's very common for roof shelters to get blown up during raids just from splash damage. Add on to that the new recursive destruction mechanic, where upper shelters on top of lower shelters that get destroyed are now going to disappear too. This whole concept has to be rethought if it's going to work for you. It could still work if you make use of what I call negative space. What do I mean by negative space? Negative spaces are the areas formed between the deck foundations or ground tampers not part of one or another of the foundations. A common one is gaps like this that form at the edges of deck foundations where two foundation expansions meet at a corner. When you connect squarely with other deck foundations, often you are left with rectangular gaps where you cannot place shelters but can overhang a shelter onto the space if you lined up the deck squarely enough. This is not the only kind of negative space you can create, but it's the example I will use today to demonstrate the concept. With holes like this under your deck foundation, you're going to want to block it off to prevent raiders from getting to your base by blowing it from underneath. Put foundation ramps on all sides and clip them into each other to form a solid and indestructible barrier that players can't get through. This works whether your negative space is 1 square or even as much as 4 squares big. The interlocking ramps block passage by legit players. Here's the view from below. As you can see, a solid and unbreakable barrier as strong as the deck foundation themselves. The reason you do this is most negative spaces are actually weak points in a base that can be exploited by savvy raiders. In the case of the gaps formed at the corners of decks though, you could totally mitigate this weakness if the negative space is surrounded by other foundations not along a perimeter edge of the base. You are limiting the options for raiders, and it's a tool you can use to force them to take the path you want into your base, usually through a maze of endless gates and shelters that you position in your favor. Anyway, this video is not about blocking a gap like this, so let's get back to the hidden loot shelters. Now, so you can see it better without having an entire base blocking the view, I'm going to construct just the inner part of this section of base to act as a cutaway view of this kind of hidden shelter trick. I'm going to put down all the walls around the center there and then completely encircle it with 7 smaller single cell shelters and 1 large shelter to close in the last square and overhang it over the center square we blocked off with the ramps. Then I'm going to do the same thing with the upper level shelters. 7 single cell upper level shelters all on top of the single cell shelters on the bottom, and then an 8th single cell shelter in the middle with the door facing the direction of the large shelter it rests on. Here's what you end up with when you're done. A bunch of shelters totally surrounding the center square we blocked off, and a large shelter overhanging it. No one on the bottom level of the deck can get closer to 2 squares from the center in every direction at the minimum. For all intents and purposes, there's no reason for a raider unfamiliar with your base to even know you have something there, even on the bottom level, let alone the top where the hidden room's going to go. On top, you should have a U-shaped space going on, waiting for you to fill it with the 8th single cell shelter that will actually be the loot room. So here we are at the final stages. Never mind this extra bit of base I'm standing on, it's just there for me to get up onto the roof and to demonstrate how this design will blend in with the rest of your roofed off base. You place the hidden loot room with the door facing the direction of the large shelter. You do this because you want to set it back from the areas players walk through so no one suspects it's anything but part of the roof. When you're done, you have room you can shut in by dropping another upper level large shelter down in front of it to complete the roofing. Without ESP or someone inside your clan blabbing about your secret, most raiders won't even know there's something there, especially if you leave no access to your roof for them. When you finally do close it off, just imagine what I've done here as part of a completed roofed off base. There's no distinguishing feature or giveaway to say one roof shelter is any different than any other, with no obvious place to access it from above or below, and set back a distance from the areas of the deck that the raiders would like to target with IEDs. Even if they blow off roof shelters with splash damage, it won't be revealed because it's in negative space with no adjacent access. When you need access to the shelter to store or retrieve items from your long-term storage, just demolish the shelter sitting in front of the door. When you're done, replace the shelter and the roof is good as new. Hammer your deck so the roof shelters all have the same level of decay, and there's no sign anything is going on up there except a plain old unremarkable roof for the base. That's all for this Killcam update. Like and comment on the video if you please, and do subscribe if you've not already. Thanks for watching, and goodbye.